Hey, what up, you rat bastards? You know how that guy Phil DeFranco, he says, how are you, you beautiful bastards? I'm gonna just steal his thing, but I'll add a tweak to it, which will be, hello, you rat bastards.
Hello, you rat bastards.
But anyway, I wanted to do what I call a pretty meta video. It's pretty absurd, and I think most people can kind of catch what's going on here, but I just want to show you this, and you can make your own decision.
As for the mall Santa, he sadly is not alone in apparently thinking that there's something wrong or troubling about boys playing with toy guns.
Okay, let me just set this up really quick. This story that he's doing, this guy does like a political channel. He's kind of like a Ben Shapiro minion. This guy, Matt Walsh, he does like really kooky. If Steven Crowder is not dumb enough for you, there's this guy, basically. He does really kooky right-wing stuff on YouTube. He's a Ben Shapiro minion, and there you go. He's talking about some story where Santa discouraged a kid from playing with a Nerf gun, basically, and he's completely outraged by this, and it's the most important issue going on right now.
This is a common hang-up that people have, and increasingly so in our confused and anti-male society. It goes along with the general hang-up about boys being aggressive, rough, violent. Everywhere a boy turns, he's met by forces wishing to domesticate and feminize him. Now, on the list of those threats,
pause it for 1 second.
Okay, so Sammy Cedar's gonna talk about this too, but the funniest thing about this is he says everywhere there's forces wishing to domesticate and feminize young boys. By the way, domesticate. What do you mean? Like, look at your set. This is the first thing that came to my head. Look at your set. You're like more quote-unquote domesticated than probably anybody watching your show. You're wearing a vest, for God's sake. You know, $1,000 microphone that some right-wing billionaire paid for. You're more domesticated than the average person. This guy lives in, he works for a right-wing media company. Okay, but besides that, what I think is actually really interesting about this is that how not new this kind of approach is. And what he's doing here is he's doing a classic marketing move. And this is going on all over YouTube, all over wherever. This kind of marketing trick is being used, but especially Jordan Peterson does this. Any of these kind of especially right-wing YouTubers are really turning this dial up to 11. So this is really, really, really interesting to me. And this is from the Smithsonian website. There's actually a lot of interesting stuff on that website, so I highly recommend it. But this is about a classic sort of advertising story. And I'll just read you this from a paper. This is an ad that they came up with in the early 1900s to sell deodorant, which was not as popular at the time. The most humiliating moment in my life when I overheard the cause of my unpopularity with men. And this was this ad campaign designed to sell deodorant to women. And let me just read you some of the actual article. This is amazing. And it explains so much about modern life, I think, especially in the United States. But listen to this. This is just kind of a summary of the article. And what it's talking about basically is that this woman wanted to start this is in the early 1900s, wanted to start a deodorant company. And people were not buying this crap. They were not buying deodorant. Deodorant at the time was it didn't work well. There were dangerous chemicals in it. It stained clothing. Like, it was just not a popular product. So the woman who was trying to start this company, she just couldn't make it work. So she ended up hiring this guy Young. I can't remember his first name, but something Young, who worked for an advertising company to basically figure out a way to get people to want to buy this crap. Here's just a summary of the article. Young decided to present perspiration as a social faux pas that nobody would directly tell you was responsible for your unpopularity. And you could see that in that ad. That was one of his creations, but which they were happy to gossip behind your back about. In a memoir, Young, who's the advertiser, notes that women in his social circle stopped speaking to him. While other JWT female copywriters, that's the advertising company he worked for, told him he had insulted every woman in America. So this guy came up with this. His original copy didn't work very well. It was basically saying, hey, look, we're doing... It was more honest. It was basically saying, hey, look, we're trying to fix the formula to this stuff. It's not that unhealthy. It's not going to stain your clothes. It was basically, he was trying to tickle people's logic brains instead of the emotional part of their brains. And it didn't work as well. But then he went extreme. And apparently women he knew were not a big fan of this. But the strategy worked. According to JWT Archives, the antiperspirant company was called Odorano. Odorano sales rose 112%. So this strategy killed it. Like, it worked so well that it basically made the company profitable when it was just kind of flatlining. 112% to $417,000 in 1920, and that's a huge amount of money back then. The financial success of Young's strategy to exploit female insecurity was not lost on competitors. It didn't take long before other deodorant and antiperspirant companies began to mimic Odorano's so-called whisper copy and advertising that's trying to touch emotional buttons. It would take another decade or two before the strategy would be used to get men to buy deodorants and antiperspirants. Very interesting. What they figured out, these advertisers, is if you can find an insecurity in people, like in this case, it was, hey, people are talking about you behind your back that you stink and you're sweaty. It's like there's a social panic. There's a bad feeling that needs to be relieved, and advertisers swoop in, companies swoop in with the product. This, and you could see through this. These are numbers. This is math. This is actual, like, a scientific experiment that succeeded. That was confirmed. The hypothesis was confirmed. If you can exploit an insecurity in people, you can get them to buy what you're selling really, really well. And just a quick note from Views Vapes. Views Vapes. If you don't vape, you're not erotic to people that you want to make out with. They just won't be interested unless you get this. And I was talking to an older person a couple days ago about the 70s, living in the 70s and the 80s and stuff like that. And they were talking about this thing called Keeping Up with the Joneses, you've probably heard of. And this was sort of like a cultural thing that still probably kind of exists a lot. But I think was more documented 40 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever it is. There was this kind of, phenomenon of people thinking they needed to buy certain things and they needed to be viewed as successful by just some other person that they didn't even know, like a neighbor that they didn't talk to, or some abstract other that was always judging them, that they didn't buy enough expensive crap. And, it's the exact same idea. It's the idea of feeling insecure about something and looking for a way to fix that insecurity, and then advertisers, companies using that insecurity as a way to sell products. And to me, like, this is the exact same thing that's going on with these guys always going on about this stuff about, young men are being feminized. Oh, you're not masculine enough. And of course, a guy who up until like 10 minutes ago lived in LA. He's a media guy on a set doing YouTube videos. The kind of absurdity of it. They're doing the exact same thing with all this stuff, talking about how, everything's trying to make you feminine. Everything's trying to make you feminine. And I got all the answers, and I'm the one on your side to stop this. And it exploits an insecurity in a lot of, I think, young guys, and surprisingly, I think a lot of older people watch this and kind of agree with it too, because they don't have a totally developed sense of self either. And another thing, these guys, these sort of Daily Wire, Steven Crowder, whatever, these YouTube idiots, they're selling unpopular, like, political views. Like, that's what they're really selling. It's just like the deodorant of the early 1900s. It's something that people don't really want. I mean, if you look at polls and stuff, most people, they're not really excited about lower taxes for billionaires and all the stuff that these guys are pushing. So But the thing is, in terms of young guys and maybe even older guys being super insecure about their masculinity, all that is, you have to understand, and this is exactly what it is. All it is a undeveloped personality. That's really all it is. If you are a young guy out there, maybe some young Jordan Peterson fan out there finds this, if that still exists. If that stuff works on you, all it means is that you need to, or you're still in the process of developing your own personality. And there's no like YouTube video or anything that's gonna help you do that. You have to do it from really like figuring yourself out, looking inside of yourself, learning more, not from propagandists, but, from actual like meaningful, well thought out books and material like that, and getting more experience and making better friends and all this kind of like healthy stuff, not just gawking at a YouTube video, slack mouthed gawking at a PragerU ad or something. It's weird, but what matters most in making people comfortable around you, I think, and making people like you and making people think you're super confident and stuff like that, which is, I think, what these guys are like dancing around, is just embracing whatever you are really deeply. There's nothing more attractive than somebody who's just super comfortable in whatever. It doesn't even matter like what they are. When people listen to this kind of stuff, it takes them further away from that, of embracing what they are, because they project some traditional, propagandized, advertised version of whatever they're talking about, and feel like they don't measure up, feel like they need to buy things, feel like they need to click on more YouTube videos, and they get more and more panicked and weird and neurotic, instead of what's actually going to make you happier and more attractive and blah blah blah, make people like you more, which is just really loving yourself and embracing who you are and being really proud of it. So I don't know, that's just my stupid little take on Sammy Cedar's video. Big fan of Sammy Cedar, and not a big fan of these weird kook YouTube channels.